An entitled Karen's son steals my Game Boy all because he claims that he deserves it. Calls the police when I steal it back. So here's some background information. My dad had a nice collection of vintage consoles from when he was in his 20s. Since he didn't use the consoles that much, he gave me a few consoles. I mostly used the Game Boy Color because I loved playing Pokemon Crystal on it. This story takes place when I was 15. I'm now 19. I was at Dave & Buster's, an arcade I still love visiting today, when I saw a little boy snatching those cards Dave & Buster's uses for games from people. I didn't really do anything about it since it wasn't my business, and karma would catch up to him soon enough. Once I was done playing with the Game Boy, I was about to get up so I could get a card to play some of the games, but I was quickly stopped by a woman. "Excuse me, young man, stop right there." I responded with, hi, can I help you? Like every Karen, she used that classic, "Let me see your manager" voice. "Yes, you can help me. Give my son your Game Guy toy thing you have." "Excuse me? You heard me, young man. Give my son the Game Guy." And why would I do that? Well, my son has behaved for a month, and I'm trying to find the perfect gift for him. The fact that she was calling it a Game Guy annoyed me. "Sorry, ma'am, but I'm not just giving my Game Boy away." "Oh, all right. How about 40? "What do you mean 40? $40 for your Game Guy. How is that so hard to understand?" "Lady, a Game Boy cost a little over $100, and even if it did cost $40, I'm not selling it." The Karen went back to her kid and started talking to him. I just ignored it, put my Game Boy in my back pocket, and went over to get a card. I got it without any issues, and went over to play a game. While I was playing, I felt a bit of shuffling in my back pocket, and heard small footsteps walking away from me. Can you guess what happened? Yep, my Game Boy was gone. I instantly knew who was responsible for this. I don't get mad easily, but since the Game Boy was my dad's originally, I was furious. Especially since it has my Pokemon game still in the Game Boy. I stormed over to the Karen, who was walking out of the arcade with her son. "Hey lady!" Karen looked shocked, because I found out my Game Boy was missing. "How dumb do you have to be to not notice a whole console go missing from your pocket?" "Ugh, it's you. What do you want?" "Your little spawn of Satan just stole my Game Boy." "How dare you say that about my little angel?" "Give it back, now." "No, he deserves this." I tried to take it back from the kid, but Karen slapped me hard. "What the hell was that for? I'm just trying to get my console back." "Well, too bad. Your Game Guy is ours now." "Are you kidding me right now? That was my dad's Game Boy." "So what? It's old and junky. He wouldn't care." FYI, my dad fucking loved playing on that Game Boy. And I'm pretty sure my dad would be flaming about this. I tried to snatch the Game Boy, and I actually got it, but only because that devil's hands were very greasy, and made my Game Boy very dirty. "How dare you take that from him? I'll be calling the police." I just ignored them, hopped on my bike, and headed home. You thought that was all? Hell no. About an hour after I got home, I heard a knock on my door, and lo and behold, an officer was at my door. Guess who was behind her? Karen and her devil. The officer asked me if I'd stolen the item, and it took tons of convincing for the officer to let me go. I had to show him my 5-year-old receipt for Pokemon Crystal. Once that was dealt with, Karen bothered me for a few days, but she gave up later. I still can't get over the fact that she called a Game Boy a Game Guy. I can't get over the fact that she let her son steal something, and when confronted about it, she just tells the victim, "Yeah, well, it's ours now." How much audacity and entitlement does one need for that? Not to mention demanding other people's property in the first place. This level of impudence is downright ridiculous. An entitled mother insists that I share my Nintendo Switch with her child on my flight, and when I said no, she freaked out. Here's what happened. The scene is a Southwest airline flight. I was sitting in a window seat next to two lovely women, and directly horizontal from us was an empty seat, a mom and her son. The flight was taking off. For those who don't know, you are required to stay seated and keep your seatbelts on for the beginning of the flight until the captain says otherwise. I was strapped in my seat and decided to take out my Nintendo Switch from my carry-on beneath my feet. "Excuse me, ma'am?" I didn't realize at first that the mother in the seats horizontal from me was trying to get my attention. She unbuckled her belt and moved to the empty seat by the aisle closer to me. "Ma'am, with the video game?" I lifted my head, but the stranger next to me nudged me as well. "That lady wants to get your attention," the woman next to me muttered. I turned my head to see this woman leaning across the aisle with her hands on the armrest of the aisle seat in my row. "Sorry," she began. "I just wanted to know if there was any way that my son could use that game for a little while." "I'm so sorry," I began. My Nintendo Switch is just really important to me. I don't feel comfortable giving it to anyone I don't know. I don't even let my sisters play with it. I was going to continue, but the woman cut me off. "Oh, my son's not like most kids," she replied. "He's not destructive. His cousin has one of those and he knows how to play." She smiled and set her hand out. The two women seated next to me looked at me, as if they were also in disbelief. "I'm sorry," I said again. "I just don't feel comfortable. I brought it for me." "How old are you?" the woman said with a huff, retracting her hand and slapping it on her lap. "I'm 25, but I don't see how that matters," I replied, growing exceptionally uncomfortable. "Well," she began, clearly sounding agitated, "my son is 8. This is an hour and 45-minute flight, and he just wants something to do. He can't see it for a few minutes? No, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm sorry, but I'm expecting you to understand since this is my property." I put my head down and I unpaused my game, as to ignore anything she had further to say. "Are you serious?" She seemed genuinely livid. "Well, insert child's name here. Sorry, buddy. Not everyone knows how to share," the woman said to this kid next to her. Her child started whining and kicking the seat in front of him. "Thanks for this," she said to me. "A sweet kid just wants to share with you and you're being ignorant about it." Before I even opened my mouth, one of the ladies in my row snapped back at her. "How dare you bring that energy on this plane? She told you so kindly that she doesn't feel comfortable with passing her electronics to a stranger." The mother wasn't having it. "She's an adult and can't share with a child for a few minutes of a nearly 2-hour flight. You should have brought something for him to do then," the woman in my row responded. It shut her up good. At the end of the flight, the woman collected her luggage from the overhead bins and said, "I hope you're happy going against God's word, not sharing with a child." Some of the people around us giggled. I'm sure that they all overheard the drama at the beginning of the flight. I've come across some entitled people in my life, but this strange lady took the cake. Ah, yes, the old passage from the Bible that said, "What is mine, and what is thine shall also be mine." Corinthians 6:69. Jokes aside, it's pretty ironic she accused you of going against God's word, when she was literally breaking the 10th commandment by coveting your Switch, and probably was planning to break the 8th by not giving it back. In the future, though, you need not to explain yourself or entertain further harassment. Saying just the word "no" is a complete sentence. Entitled parents stole my Switch and held it hostage because I wasn't visiting anymore. This story is so unfortunate/pathetic. I'm a 20-year-old male and moved out of my parents' house at 18 because I really can't stand them. And it's for all the kinds of reasons you can guess. They were jerks, favored my younger siblings, used me as free childcare, told me, "What's mine is mine, what's yours is mine," and all that BS. When I left, my dad told me not to let the door hit me on the way out and don't come back. I got the smallest and cheapest apartment I could find and have worked the same full-time job for 2 years. My parents didn't even hold out a month before calling me and begging me to come back home. Because without me, someone else had to watch my siblings. I refused, because now I finally had time for myself. My dad eventually called me and actually demanded I move back home and pay them rent instead, because family is more important than my personal independence. I said back to him that my life is important too, and for once, I'm getting to live for myself. So he basically said, "Well, then see how long you can last without us." And we didn't talk for months. I don't know what he was hoping for. I managed well enough by myself. My family seemed to slowly accept that I wasn't going to come crawling back, and over time, we seemed to mend things. I could tell they were having a hard time dealing with the fact things were on my terms and not theirs. They begged me to watch my youngest siblings from time to time, even though the two that are closest to me in age are in their mid-teens now. But my parents don't want to put babysitting on them any more than they have to, which is hypocritical of them since they tried to put it on me as much as possible. And yes, I have called them out on that. They responded with gaslighting and more months of silence yet again. And again, they were the ones to come crawling back to me for help. Not long ago, I bought myself a used Nintendo Switch. Though I could only afford one game for it at the moment, which is Mario Kart, I got it bundled with the console for a good deal. My mom came by on a Saturday and asked me to watch my two siblings for a while. She basically pushed them in the door at me and ran. I was stuck with these two rowdy kids all day in my tiny apartment. My mom didn't come back until after 9 p.m., and that was because I called her and made her come get the kids. And she didn't really like that I cut her fun time short. I said that unless she wanted to pay me, I wasn't going to be watching my siblings all day anymore. And next time, I won't even open the door, and I'll call the cops if she just leaves them outside. The next morning, I realized I couldn't find my Switch anywhere, so I called my parents, and like I thought, one of my siblings took it. I said I was coming over to get it right away, but my mom said it could wait because my youngest sibling was gaming on it, and she didn't have the heart to take it away. I said it was taken without my permission, and I will be taking it back. I got on my bike and rode there ASAP. And when I arrived, my sibling was crying because the Switch's battery had gone dead and they didn't have the charger. I told them to give it back, but my dad took it and said I can have it back when I agree to start helping out with my siblings more. I told him if that's how he wanted to play this, I'd get police involved. And no, I was not bluffing. He dug his heels in and insisted I wouldn't do it, until I pulled my phone out and started dialing. My mom yelled, "Wait!" and hurriedly took my Switch back from my dad. He called her a traitor and demanded she return it to him instead of me, but she said it wasn't worth having police called on them. Before leaving, I told them if this ever happens again, I'd be calling the police first, and if they want to switch for my sibling so bad, they can get their own. My dad yelled that I can't disrespect him like that, and I countered, even though I'm an adult, he's not bothered to ever show an ounce of respect to me, and I'd had enough. Then I walked out with him yelling at me to come back and face him. Right now, it's back to silence from them. My mom texted me once begging me to still watch my siblings. I said that if she wanted me to babysit so bad, she could pay me, and I'd only take the money in advance, because I'm not doing it for free anymore. Especially after they stole from me and tried to keep from returning my property. They don't own me. I'm an adult with my own place and my own life, and they can either get used to it or get lost. It's been over a week since that text convo, and none of them have, as of yet, talked to me again, which is fine. They can deal with their own messes. If you enjoyed these stories, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell. Check out the other videos on your screen right now. Otherwise, you're definitely the jerk.